time for the underdogs. 2 times that they doubted me. You know I did it for my mama now. Only people know who proud of me. Now I'm getting where I gotta be. And you better want me take off. You brought the beast from inside of me. I bet on myself and it paid off.
Okay. All right. Episode 2. We got Kieran Williams in the house. We're here. He's got his boots on. He's ready to go. We have no idea what we're going to talk about today. We're just winging it, as we always do. I promised Kieran I would let him introduce himself rather than me introduce himself, but I'm going to steal a little bit of it, and then I'm going to pass it over to you. For those of you who don't know, even though I feel like everybody who's listening to this, probably going to be all 7 people, Kieran is my partner on the Garage Gym, one of my best friends, and incredibly grateful that we get to work on a business together that really just fills us up. I think it's just such a blessing, and I think it's really, really rare. I think we've talked, to a ton of people who don't get to live their life working on something that they're so passionate on. And we've both talked about the Garage Gym in particular being a business that we never want to stop working on, which is amazing. It's a really cool feeling. So grateful to have Kieran here. Excited to talk about everything from life to entrepreneurship to endurance to probably some weird, wonky stories in the middle. We'll see where we land. But Kieran Williams, episode 2. Good to have you, brother. And maybe a little intro for the people.
Thank you for having me. My name's Kieran Williams. I think number 1, I'm Sam Tooley's best friend. Number 2, I'm co-founder of the Garage Gym with Sam Tooley. And I think more than anything, really a guy on the pursuit of the best version of himself and using everything that I do in my life to do that. So thank you for having me.
That's a good intro. I do not have one like that. I don't have like a hit
I
or
didn't
like a
prep it,
1,
I'm not gonna
2,
lie.
3. Yeah, but it flows
Just happens.
because it is
Feels
you.
good,
It's
man.
an extension of you. All right. So what do you have going on this morning? What'd you do today?
This
What's
morning?
the typical morning in Kieran Williams' life?
Typical morning is tricky. Recently, it's been a lot of work. We're doing a migration where like everything that could have gone wrong, I think has officially gone wrong, which is always a fun learning experience, but a lot of work, which is of course good. Some type of exercise, some type of work all day. And then I came here.
Okay. And yeah, I think one of the things that we laugh about pretty consistently is just like when we've gone to do things with the garage, it's probably been the opposite of smooth. Now, externally facing the Garage Gym, for people who don't know, right? 24/7 private member gym, no staff, which is a beautiful thing. So it's simple in nature, right? What would you say has been one of the banes of your existence as we've had this business, right? We paint this picture that it's amazing and that it's lovely and all those things. What's been one of the annoyances, let's just say lately for you, whether we've actually overcome it or we're still facing it?
We'll go lately and then we'll go in general. I think lately it's literally just this migration. I don't think I've ever heard of a migration.
What is a migration for the people who don't know?
Migration, we're taking all of the members from the Garage Gym from one platform backend. So think billing, think app, think program that we write that they reference in the app. Member management, how we send communications to another platform, right? I'll save the why we did that for maybe the next episode, but it was the right move to make.
Just save it. We're not going to
We're never going to talk about it. It's not that important. But no migration when you're moving hundreds of people's information, their credit card information, their communication. Like it's never going to be easy or probably perfect. And you can do everything in your power to tee it up to be as good as it can be. And then somehow still it all gets messed up. So
Technology, man.
technology is a beautiful, crazy thing. But people are literally, it's fun. And I feel very fortunate that we have the relationship with our members the way that we do.
Yeah.
They're all friends of mine because people are literally getting double billed, which is not a good thing. But we're able to kind of laugh about it.
We're going out to dinner after this. So
Yeah,
it'll be
you guys all
excellent.
treated
Yeah.
for our dinner, actually.
Shout out Lacau.
Thanks, Garage Gym.
Yeah.
Double billings, miscommunication, didn't get the email, whatever. At the end of the day, not the end of the world. That's my biggest problem. Still a pretty good day. And I think just in general, honestly, sometimes people will ask me some iteration of that question, and I think we've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of business just in general, and hearing some of the things that they do, I don't have any problems in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, dude. I mean, I think I'm never gonna get through a podcast with this guy laugh.
It's me and you.
Yeah.
Like it's all of my friends basically.
Yeah.
And
Your
we just
mom's in
figured
the
it out.
mix. Your mom's
My
in-
mom's in the mix.
Yep.
Thank you, Mom. She's pretty easy to work with.
Yeah.
We're still feeling her out though. We'll see.
I'm iffy on her. We'll see. But yeah, dude, one of the things that I've literally never asked you, I don't think, is and you've probably talked about it elsewhere, but so for those who don't know, I met Kieran at the Garage Gym. This was during the pandemic. You had moved home you were training there 3 days, 3 times a day, rather, not 3 times a week, 3 times a day. And I was like, what is good with this guy? Lo and behold, a few months go by and we end up going out for 1 cup of coffee. I'm like, what do you think about being my partner at the garage? You eventually took over the business. You run it. I really do nothing other than be a soundboard. On paper, my mom is your partner, right? At the end of the day, that's what we're rolling with for the sake of the podcast. And back then, when you were, before you even moved home, did you ever say to yourself, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? And maybe not own a gym, but like, did you have that inkling where you were like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur one day? Or was it this opportunity presented itself and you're like, that seems dope, I'm going to do that?
Yeah, I think the greatest star alignment story of all time is called the Garage Gym because I never once thought about particularly being an entrepreneur. So I graduated from Rutgers in 2019. I moved to North Carolina. My job was not very intensive and I frankly didn't enjoy it all too much, but I was getting paid to not do a lot of work. And I was fortunate that at the time that instead of just like, there's nothing wrong with screwing off, but instead of just screwing off, I would like heard about podcasts and like started reading books. And when I was in college, I hated reading because all the books that were shoved at me were just boring as anything. But then I remember reading something from Jesse Itzler. Heard a podcast from Ed Milet, and it was just interesting. They were talking about things that I had never been exposed to, whether it be like owning the Atlanta Hawks or running some of these races, or the longer that I dove into these books and podcasts, I think more than anything, it made me realize that I didn't want to do what I was doing now. And that was okay because all of these people that I'm listening to, all of these mentors that I had, that I might not ever meet, I can learn from them. And they made tangible things that I didn't even know were comprehensible, let alone possible. Owning sports teams, starting businesses, doing 100-mile runs, whatever it is, someone out there is probably doing it. So in the back of my head, I was always like, maybe I get there. I had no grand plan, but I did know that in order to do anything at some point, I was going to need money. And fortunately, at that time, I was just living like a monk. Moved to Raleigh.
No pun intended with the Jesse Itzler book.
Yes. But I never read that book.
No.
I only read Living with a Seal. Never read Living with a Monk. Once I read Living with a Seal, I was like, the monk book can't be any cooler
That's like
than this
anti-Living
one.
with a
I should have
Seal.
read one and then the other.
Yeah.
But I just saved all my money. I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, paying like $1,200 a month in rent for downtown. I had no furniture in my apartment. I didn't furnish it. I was never there. All I was doing was working out and going to work. And I ended up saving, I think I was making 60 grand a year, something like that. And I saved like 50 grand. And that kind of, not to rabbit hole too deep, but that kind of steeps into when you and I met, the opportunity presented itself. And I was like, screw it, dude. Like,
so would you say that like listening to those podcasts and kind of shifting into that mentality of exploring personal growth, whatever, do you feel like that woke you up to the opportunity that all of these things are possible? Or yeah,
I think I read a book, I forget what book it was, but they talked about I think they called it the Beatles Crucible. And it was when the Beatles, before they were the Beatles, were like huffing it, playing a gajillion shows a week, late at night, all night. They had really no preference. Like my takeaway was they were just playing. They were getting in reps. They were learning. They were building an audience. And it was so much work. But then they became the Beatles. And I'm not relating myself to the Beatles ever. But that period of like investment in yourself and just like kind of nose to the grindstone, which fortunately I also wanted to do. It wasn't like a forced function of like, I'm neglecting all of these things to do this thing. It's really all I wanted to do was exercise and like learn about things.
Mm-hmm.
And then bonus points, I was getting paid by my job. So it was kind of the best of all three worlds. I had plenty of time to work out, which is all I wanted to do. I was learning tremendously, all of these things that I had never been exposed to in my life. And then when an opportunity presented itself, I was like, had cash. I had like a mindset that was more growth oriented in terms of, well, this is an opportunity I could do something with. I have no idea how to run a gym. I have no idea anything that isn't supply chain management, which is my major in school. Let's try it. This guy Sam seems nice.
Yeah, time
flies.
Time flies, and time will tell. But I think it's interesting too. Like a big thing that I feel like you hear on all of these podcasts is almost like an underlying question where it's like, are entrepreneurs born? Are they built? So on and so forth. And so I guess I'm curious from your perspective, as you take a step back and like really take inventory, do you feel like you've built yourself into an entrepreneur by going through it and doing the work? Or do you feel like when you said yes, it unlocked this opportunity to live into who you already were?
I would definitely say, metaphorically speaking, I saw a door open that I couldn't like unsee in terms of my parents still work in township. My dad's a garbage man. My mom's like an office worker. They are amazing.
And she works at the garage gym.
And she works at the garage gym. So she's
Oh,
kind of an entrepreneur.
yeah.
They are amazing. They've given me everything and then some I've ever wanted. But it was never own a business. It was always go to college, get a job. Your job fuels the rest of your life. And it was always really funny. Even when I was in college, I was like, dude, screw this. Like, this class is dumb. I don't need this. I'm going to get a job, whatever. But as my mom, first generation American, and my dad, I think maybe he has an associate's, they're like, bro, you get to go to college? Like, we didn't even finish, man. Stop whining about, like, you get a job. Like, your job fuels the rest of your life, which I totally understand. But it was funny because at that same time, I was listening to these podcasts about like, man, like you can work a job and you can like build this other thing. That other thing, maybe it turns into something. Or if it doesn't, you have this other thing. And the resounding theme was just like, you can do whatever you want. Like there's people out there doing crazier things that I can still almost not comprehend. So I think in terms of directly answering your question, I don't think I was ever an entrepreneur in my genes or DNA. I hear like Gary Vee is like, I was selling baseball cards at fucking 3 years old. I'm like, never, dude. I was playing soccer and like going to school. But then I was presented this opportunity where I was like, all right, dude, worst case scenario, it doesn't work. And then I'll go back to my job. But I think it's something that you can absolutely build and craft yourself into if you choose to.
Yeah. I think there's no right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that you need to be born an entrepreneur. I don't think that you need to build yourself into one. I think the best entrepreneurs are people who continue to build as they go through it, right? It's not just this reliance on being creative, being a problem solver, so on and so forth. Typically, they find something or multiple things, right? Maybe even through trial and error. And then they continue to adapt and grow as they go through their journey. I feel like you do more often than not hear about people who failed 7 times over on different projects or what have you. Fortunately for you and for I, right?
Crazy.
The first stab that we took at it.
Knock on wood.
and the thing is too, like you can still make, smaller scale mistakes as you go through it. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you as we hopped on, and dude, it's so funny. We were talking with Tim before. How often do we get to sit and have a deep, meaningful conversation about the thing that we're building or that you're working on or that I'm working on Alpha, whatever? Not often enough. So we'll take the opportunity. But there are some questions that, like, as I sat down and prepared for this, I said, what would be interesting for me to find out about Kieran, right? So what is one thing, we have people listening to this, all 7 of them, like we said, they're listening and they're like, man, that sounds great. You took a bet on yourself. You love this thing. You have this growth mindset. I don't know if I have that, right? I don't know if I can unlock that. Like, what would be step number 1 for them to find out if owning a business, starting a brand, so on and so forth, they're sitting across from you. What would you recommend for them to go do to explore whether or not that even is a possibility for them?
So I crush like hair splitting calibrating questions that I will save.
This is one of them? Like you've had this question ready to like...
No, like I want to ask you questions about what I would say. Like, can I get more information on what they're looking for, which is not going to happen because there's no one here. Maybe case in point, I was having a conversation with a mutual friend, actually. He was wanting to start something up. And I think sometimes it's quick for people to see 20 locations. 20 locations of Alpha. They see this big, pretty studio or they see whatever. And it's bigger of insert thing that they're comparing themselves to. And they go, man, that's insane. How am I ever going to get there? Obvious, like reasonable thought, but at the same time, like you didn't start with 20 locations. You started personal training on Central Ave in Westfield, New Jersey.
In Tamaquas Park, to be clear. I had a green ball that we still have the
no
garage
rent.
gym in Westfield.
Yes.
You
invited people out. You probably trained them for free. It wasn't making any money. Just like do something. Like I think the biggest thing for me is almost less of the thing and back to the pursuit of the best version of yourself. Like is not doing or not trying the thing that you're thinking about trying going to bother you on your deathbed if you didn't try it?
So let me ask you this then, different question. You typically, I feel like people come to you with this question because they hear your story, right? And you're very approachable. You like having these conversations, so on and so forth. I think you give great advice. When somebody comes to you, what's like the thing that you keep hearing from people as to why they're not starting? And what gets under your skin? Because I know too, that you get irritated by people's unwillingness to just go and try. So what do you feel like comes up for people the most, and what do you say to that?
I think a lot of times, and sometimes myself included, sometimes probably everyone included at some point, unless you can acknowledge it, like we're our own biggest blocker. Like there's still sometimes things in my life I disproportionately like outsize like what it's going to take to do something. And one of my favorite things, Tim Ferriss, on one of the 30 million hours of podcasts I listened to between 2019 and 2021, talks about
We
this.
lost you for a year then.
Done.
Yeah.
Was it before
Just-
we even knew you,
yeah.
actually? No man's land. But he talks about this calibrating question that he asks himself, and he goes, what would this look like if it were easy? So sometimes when we're planning an event or we're doing literally anything, it's sometimes easy to like shoot up and be like, oh man, dude, I need to coordinate with so-and-so. We got to get pizzas. We got to get tables. We got people. I got to do promo. Scrap all of that. If I want to get to here, what's the one thing, what would this look like if it were easy? All right, all I have to do is call a pizza guy, get tables, connect with Sam, do promotion. Dude, start there. And then you got
Make the list and execute.
Make a list and then just do it, right? But if you let your own scatter, maybe is the right word.
That's what I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
is the idea of, is it people feeling like when they come and they have these conversations with you, are you picking up on the fact that the resounding takeaway more often than not is that they don't believe they're capable? Is it that they don't have the experience? Is it that they don't have the money? Like, what is it that you feel like you pick up on from other people that maybe we can put the kibosh on right now because it is the most underlying, takeaway?
I think a lot of times people do the best that they think that they can do. And so sometimes it's awesome, as with me with some of my friends, to have someone who cuts through that and be like, yo, dude, that's nonsense. You can just do that. So I think a lot of times people are in their own way when it comes to things. And it just starts with like, what would this look like if it were easy? If I want to start this, if I want to try this, do you sign up? Do you book a class? Do you just take away the excuses? I think a lot of the times is really trying to cut through that noise. And one of the ways that I don't really do it too much because it can be perceived as the wrong way, but at least sometimes how I talk to myself is, dude, one day I'm going to die. And before I die, I probably won't think about this, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to think about this. And I'll be so pissed off if I let whatever nonsense going around between my ears stop me from at least trying. Because at the end of the day, if I try and I fail, it's better than not trying at all. Another important thing that I'll do that could be helpful here is thinking worst case scenarios. I want to start this thing. I want to do that, whatever. Worst case scenario. The business fails. I don't finish the race. All good. I lose a little money. I have some egg on my face. My girlfriend probably still likes me. My best friend probably still likes me. My family still loves me, and I'm alive. It's not that bad.
Yeah. I think that perspective is easier said than done,
100%.
right?
And I'm also 28 with no kids and no
Sure.
mortgage, right? So I say that
Responsibilities,
from some level. I don't know if privilege is the right way, but like those are things to take into consideration when you have kids or a wife and like other responsibilities. But I still think there's a way to make it fit with yours. Maybe it's not quit your job and go full time. You figure it out otherwise.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that I wanted to start the podcast in general is when you have a unique perspective and you actually believe that that perspective should be shared, right? And should be valuable. One of the things that I go back to is I would never wish the things that I've been through in my life on someone else, right? Losing my dad, losing my brother, so on and so forth, right? There's been a number of pretty monumental moments in my life that have shaped this perspective that I have. And yet I wish I could give everyone the perspective I have. And the only way that I know how to do that is by being in front of a microphone or writing down my thoughts or sharing them. So sometimes I catch myself being like, who the hell wants to hear what I have to say? Who the hell cares? But then the other times is I put it out there and that one person raises their hand and says, you know what, man, like I needed to hear that. And they feel compelled to tell me. And I'm always so grateful for that reminder. And so I think while some people listening might say, man, it's so hard for me to agree with the perspective that you have, or it's so easy for you guys who have successful businesses to sit here and say, it's all going to be good. And what's the worst thing that happens, right? To your point, some people have much more responsibilities than we have with families, this, that. But at the end of the day, like sharing that perspective, whether it's thinking about something as big as death or the smallness of just it not working and so what, it is important to paint the picture because it will resonate with one person. So I'm curious for you if there's something that you've heard lately or something that, sticks in the back of your mind where you needed to hear that perspective to remind you to keep going or try something new or put yourself back in the arena. Like, is there anything that like you've heard lately that's really resonated with you? Or even something you've been telling yourself?
Yeah, it's kind of where, and again, it's not like I know it, therefore I tell myself, but I think a lot of advice most people already know. Like I've listened to a ton of podcasts, and every now and again you hear something, and you're like, dude, how have I existed before I heard this sentence?
Yeah.
Far and few in between. But I think a lot of it is just like the fundamentals of whether you're building a business, or you're building a family, or you're living your life. You got to work backwards from what you're going towards. So for me personally, it's like, dude, I'm trying to pursue the best version of myself, 100% physically, mentally, and socially, so that at the end of my days, metaphorically speaking, when I die, there's just like, I don't know if analogy is the right word, but there's this tale that like you meet the person you could have become.
Yeah.
And it's like 1-to-1, Kieran and Kieran 100%, Kieran wherever he lands. And it's like, dude, I want to be as close to this guy or better than humanly possible. So for me, in the way that I look at challenges, big and small, migration or otherwise, it's not always perfect. Sometimes I can get caught in the weeds of whining to myself, but I try and yank myself out and be like, dude, what an opportunity this is to go back to pursuing the best version of myself. Problems are not a bug. They're a feature of pursuing the best version of yourself, of running a business, of being a significant other, of being a human in society. So therefore, why would I ever try to avoid problems? If anything, let's like race at them.
Yeah.
Because with every problem that you solve or the skill that you build to be better, you're on your way to self-improvement, which is just a forever game to play. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about quite a bit is just that all of this is one big game, right? Again, very fortunate to be able to say, but at the same time, like looking at life and looking at the challenges that you have inside, the ups and the downs and everything in between as a game where people are people and there's money and there's business and there's attention. Like this is just one big, like fun sandbox that we get to create. Like, why would I not be excited about that?
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to try and ask it slowly. And I'm even going to tell you my own answer so that you have time to think about it. All right. So we keep talking about living to be the best version of ourselves, right? Both physically, mentally, emotionally. I think I did that right. Even socially, right? What do you feel like is the biggest gap between where you are now and where you want to go? What would you say is holding you back the most from actually being that person? And I'll tell you because, and I mean this very honestly, when you talk about that, I obviously internalize it for myself. One, I don't know if I've taken the time to actually picture what that looks like and write it down what that looks like. What does the best version of Sam, what does that look like emotionally, physically, so on and so forth? So I think one is that I haven't given myself the clarity around what that looks like. The other part is I actually think, and I've written about this a number of times, sometimes I am embarrassed by my own ambition, right? And we talk about the gyms, the number of them, the putting myself in a podcast arena now, writing on LinkedIn, there can be this imposter syndrome, right? But there's also this scratch that I have that goes unitched, if you will. And it's an embarrassment around how big I actually want to go. And I know the work that's required. I have no problem with the work that's required, but it's almost like you already have these things. You've already achieved a certain level of success. And who are you to want more? Why don't you just be grateful for what you have? And yet I see other people who have played the game at a bigger level. And there's no doubt that they have not gotten there because they've been willing to admit to themselves and maybe even other people that ambition. So I know for me, what I've got to work on is having clarity around where I want to go and what that looks like, but also just an acknowledgement over the fact that if I ever hope to get there, I can't be scared about the ambition. So is there anything that for you feel like is holding you back right now from where you actually want to go?
I think maybe before I answer the question, I'll pin it momentarily. I think of all people that we both spend time with, we've spent, albeit maybe like once a month for like 4 years, quite a bit of time together in this setting and then in other settings. And I know probably just as well as Taylor that your wife, not my girlfriend, maybe my girlfriend too, I know just as well as anyone who knows you very well that the intention that you bring to anything that you do is not only pure for yourself, but is for the greater good of everyone involved. So I think one of the ways, for what it's worth, that I try to look at some of the things that I do, right? We just did a huge toy party. Toy parties, raise money for charity. It's all good. But I remember thinking to myself, like, dude, I hate being like the face of this. It's so odd because we are all raising money for kids and toys, and there needs to be like promotion for it. But right now we have no footage of kids getting toys. Like, there's nothing else to do to promote these events other than me. And I would hate for the misinterpretation to be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, he's talking about toys for kids, but he's making these dumb AI videos and it's all about him. Not my intention at all. I can't control how other people perceive it. But I was able to sleep good at night and have two really awesome, successful parties that raised like $8,000 for toys with everyone who was involved because I was able to tell myself that my intentions here are good, right? I can't expect it to be received any other way, but I can ensure that my intentions are good. So one of the things, for what it's worth, that might be able to help is with, especially on the ambition side, like your intentions are gold, right? Wherever that lands you, you'll make some mistakes, you'll win some, you lose some. That's part of the course of the game. But one of the things that has helped me tremendously is reminding myself that my intentions are pure and I can't control how anyone else perceives it. I wish them the best, but I know that my intentions are good.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Question. One thing holding me back from 100%?
Whatever you feel like maybe it's maybe a problem that you're not solving. It's maybe something that's an underlying issue that you're not handling. Like, this is like a real question
Mhm.
that's, maybe something that you've been like, I know I'm not doing this, but I should be. That's getting in the way of where you want to go.
So I think one, in terms of like where I want to go, I say 100%, but there's no day of like, holy shit, dude, like 100%, man, I'm all
Yeah.
done. It's a forever moving goalpost. Whether you open one gym and then you open two, you do this, it could be +1 and better. So I wouldn't say it's so much like blocking me from getting there. I think I try to be really, really adamant about having the self-reflection of like, dude, what is doing that? And how do I murder it? Like as fast as humanly possible. And I'm not perfect at it, but I really try to be what's bothering me or what am I nervous about? And how do I literally just like jump in front of it? So I think the only thing with that then, right, to the best of my ability, acknowledging those things and trying to be better, which I'm not perfect at, is just time,
Mm.
right? I'm 29 this month. I've been an entrepreneur for 4 years. Yeah, for 4 years. And if I were to look at 21-year-old Kieran and be like, yo, dude, you're going to be talking with Sam about this stuff and you've got these businesses and you've got relationships and family, but you got the wrong guy. Like, I have a job that I'm going to be okay with, whatever. I'm going to be on this trajectory to make this much money. I had no concept of any of this. So for me, in terms of forever pursuit of 100%, I think it's just time and looking at blockers like that and just trying to violently get them out of the way as fast as I can, and then just build skills to be better. So I don't know if that answers your
Yeah, it
question.
does. I think it's an interesting question for somebody like yourself or myself, which again, like probably requires us to step out of this moment and say, like, what is it that I'm not handling? There's that saying where it's like freedom is on the other side of the thing that you don't want to go do, right? And I'm sure I'm butchering that, but it's this idea of like there's something that we know we're not addressing that on the other side of it we're going to feel so much better, so on and so forth. So again, for me, it's that ambition, it's that clarity. For you, it might just be, leveraging time to kind of
Like
compartmentalizing it.
I love the clarity piece. I meant to say that too. Like sitting down and actually thinking about that would probably serve me very well. And when I say time, I just mean like, dude, like anything half worthwhile
Hmm.
takes probably way more time, energy, money, resources than I can comprehend.
Yeah.
So therefore, just time with that, parlayed with the headspace of, dude, just like really be open about improvement on all fronts. And I love the clarity piece in terms
Yeah.
of like really actually thinking about that because I could probably
And
find something.
end of the year, right? It's just like kind of natural.
Yeah.
Tay and I were going to go away next week and go to upstate New York where there's literally nothing to do. And part of my thought process was I want to take some time to really get honest with myself around what adjustments do I need to make? What are the conversations I need to have that I don't want to have? So on and so forth. And we decided to nix the trip because I was just like, I need to be home. It would be selfish to go away to an extent. But yeah, I think the clarity thing this time of year, again, we'll launch this in January. But for people who haven't given great thought to like, where do I want to take my life? What do I want it to look like? What do I want it to feel like? When you can get clear, then you can reverse engineer and just say, okay, I'm going to go get that thing. And these are the adjustments that I need to make.
Well, and even back to the question you mentioned earlier, someone comes up to you, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying I have an end goal of where I want to go, but I have like this quadrant of like things and people and places and X, Y, and Z. And I know that working backwards from that, like these are a couple suitable options of things that I can do, right? So then with those options, I could probably do one of these 3 things. So like working backwards from that could very well give you the first step in doing that thing that you thought was so big and grandiose, which is awesome. But you can just break it down into, all right, well, maybe I should start calling some people.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to chat with you about, because I think it's interesting. Now, your post today on social kind of throw a whole monkey wrench in this entire process. But you've had an interesting evolution with your fitness over time. When we first met, you were guns blazing every day, all day, just ridiculous workouts, so on and so forth. I went on to watch you accomplish some pretty amazing feats from an ultramarathon perspective. We did High Rocks together, won the North American Championship. I always like to drop that because we'll take some podium
And then we
spots.
almost did really well at Worlds, but we'll save that for a different
That's
day.
a different blooper podcast. We can show some signs,
footage from Manchester.
Some wild footage. My man lives to fight another day. But then also for me, I think I've watched you get to a place with your fitness where you don't need it to happen every day. You can go for a run in the freezing cold. You can go for the run in the middle of the day. You can hit some body weight workouts. You can do whatever. I feel like you've really gotten to a place where like fitness is a part of your life, but it doesn't define who you are, right? And I think for me, one of the challenges that I face is a lot of my work really is predicated on me being a fit individual and making it to podiums, so on and so forth, winning races, whatever. And over the years, when I've gotten hurt, right, I had to take an entire year off. That really messed with my headspace. It messed with the worth that I felt like I had, the value that I thought I could bring. Should I be this front-facing founder when I can't even bend over and touch my toes? Like, that was a real problem and struggle for me. So I'm curious if you've given any thought to that evolution and kind of where your head is at now. We can save what you're now training for as well to an extent, but do you feel like you've gotten to a place where, fitness is not the end all be all of who you are and what your life's about?
I thought a lot about it. And I would say, to recap a little bit, 2019, I graduated college. I went through like a crummy time in my life, and I just like poured into endurance sport. And it was 1,000,000%, hindsight 2020, like a vice or an outlet. Like whether I could have been drinking, I could have been doing drugs, but I was running. I'd rather choose that one. But it was bizarre. Like I was training 5 hours a day. I was wearing a watch at the time. I don't wear a watch anymore. Which kind of alludes to the ultimate answer too.
Yeah.
It was just like, dude, stop. Like, dude, it didn't actually say dude, stop. But it was like recovery, 0, sleep, whatever. And I was just like incessant on wake up. My routine at the time, I was living in North Carolina, was ride my bike an hour and 10 minutes to work one way, get off my bike, I'd run, I'd go take a cold shower, not because I wanted to, because I wouldn't let myself take a warm one, even in like December. Sucked. Go to my desk. My job wasn't very intensive. I would honestly download books to my laptop and go in huddle rooms and block my calendar for meetings and listen to podcasts. Which is a pretty good deal, I'm not gonna lie. And I was getting paid. On lunch, I would go to the corporate gym and I would work out. I would leave at like 3:30. I would bike home an hour and 15 minutes. If I got a flat tire, I would walk. I would not Uber home. I would walk however many miles too far back to my apartment. I would have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I would take a nap on the floor because I was all sweaty. And then I'd go to the YMCA and I'd work out again, and then I'd go to sleep. On one hand, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life because it was so difficult. I can look back now and be like, yo, I never want to do that again.
Did it feel difficult in the moment, or it just felt like, were there moments where you're like, I literally can't feel my legs. I don't know why the fuck I'm doing this. Or was it just like, this is what I do?
This is what I do. Yeah. It's like,
it.
dude, like you wake up at 4:30. I would somehow like meditate in the morning, which I can't even do now because I'm so tired when I wake up. I wake up and like meditate
we are
for
getting
10
old.
minutes.
We're getting old.
That too.
Part of it.
But it was just like, this is like the non-negotiable of non-negotiables. Like I would never not do that, right? Which is a superpower in some regard. But as with any good thing, if overkill is not a good thing. So that transition, I moved home, I went to the garage, ran out the wazoo, still more of like a crutch / vice than anything. But it was really cool to the original facility that I met you, Jamie, John, all these awesome people at. When I was in North Carolina, I spent 90% of my time alone. When I was at work, didn't talk to anyone really. I had a buddy, I had one friend in my apartment complex, and I coached at a local cross country program. My coach, I was a glorified volunteer because I just like cheerleaded them. It was awesome. But I spent most of my time alone, which was, again, a superpower, but in extreme doses, not the best thing in the world. And when I came to the garage, it was almost like this, like, when the hell did I get around so many people?
Yeah, it became social,
It
right?
became social. And it was probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to me because training buddies turned friends, turned business partners, turned, to now answer your question, like a totally different relationship with fitness. And don't get me wrong, like you can talk to my girlfriend and she might not totally agree. I still think that like daily exercise is incredibly important. Not just to train for stuff, but more than anything to keep the commitments that you make to yourself. So if I say I'm going to exercise today, once or twice or whatever, for however time or whatever it is, I have to. Like I don't think it's any longer like an unhealthy thing, barring extremes, but it's the commitment that I made. Like,
Yeah.
dude, if I can't keep the commitments that I make to myself, what kind of boyfriend am I going to be? What kind of business partner am I going to be? If I start skipping stuff and you're like, dude, like Kieran missed 3 workouts, like, is he doing everything at the garage?
Mhm.
That stuff just translates.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's any longer almost like the sole identifier of my identity, which it was for a while. I'd always have a race on the calendar. I'd always be training. It was all I really thought about. And it was funny. I was actually talking to Zach Levitt at the garage yesterday. He's hurt and he's kind of going through a similar thing. And there was one point when we were just open garage Westfield. I'm still just like, my training is the priority. I'd work out in the morning, I'd work out at night. And I remember like I was about to go for like a night run, which is just what I did every day. And I was like, bro, I have work to do.
Yeah.
I have to get, like, we have
Yeah.
a business, man. Like, what
Yeah.
am I doing out here? And then it kind of skewed all the way to the other side where I'm like, dude, the business is the most important thing in the world. And it was awesome to have that experience too. And I think now I'm definitely in a different in between of you can absolutely prioritize both. I think they kind of coincide, but it's much more now a fitness is fuel to the best version of myself. It's not Kieran.
Yeah. It's seasons of life,
Yeah.
right? So I think there will be seasons of life where
100%.
work is busy and you need to prioritize that. Relationships are busy and you need to prioritize that. You can toggle things on and you can toggle things off. I think being conscious of that crutch, right? Whether it is fitness, whether it is something else, thank goodness, right? It's a positive outlet to an extent.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it goes back to like, what are you also not handling, right? And what are you leveraging to kind of make yourself feel productive or like you're doing something good when in reality, if you actually pull yourself back and really evaluate what's happening, there's probably something there that you need to break down. And I would say probably the most important thing that you said there, right? Outside of your crazy regimen and what have you, and the peanut butter jellies, which sound phenomenal right now. This idea of building, of following through with your word, right? And I think for me right now, and for anybody that I talk to when they're talking about like, I just don't feel like the best version of myself, what do I need to do? Forget what it is. If you say you're going to do something, go do it. Follow through with your word, because ultimately the only person who's going to know that that happened, you didn't follow through, is you. I talk about it on Ladder all the time when I'm doing the voiceovers. Like we get to the core section after a ridiculously hard lower body day. And I'm like, you could tap out right now. You could leave. You could say you finished the workout. You can give it 5 stars. You can write into the group chat and you can let us know that you completed the workout, right? And you kicked ass. The only person that's going to know that you skipped the core section is you. And I just think that idea of following through with your word, whether it's you said you were going to send the email, you send the email. You said you were going to read 10 pages, you read 10 pages. You said you were going to do the workout. The workout is almost like the easy one to go press play and do because it's self-serving at the end of the day. So I think that if you're listening to this and you're struggling with feeling confident in you are who you say you are, check at what you said you were going to do and did you actually do it? If so, you're probably not feeling that way. But if there's things that are there left unchecked that you told somebody you were going to do, specifically yourself, that's probably a great place to start.
I'm a big fan of controlling the controllables and insert sentence. I don't feel confident. I don't feel strong. I don't feel X, Y, and Z. I can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, confident.
Yeah.
Like now, like I don't think that's how it works. Maybe I'm wrong, but what can you control? I can't control waking up tomorrow and being confident. There's a lot going on. I can control waking up tomorrow and exercising because I know that exercise will help with my confidence. So it's kind of like you can't skip the steps in between to get the thing that you want.
And it's compounding, dude. Right. So it's like, it's
Exponentially.
not going to
Yeah.
happen. It's not going to be the night before, it's 8:00. You're, watching whatever on Netflix. You signed up for the class at 6 a.m. and you go and you walk out of there being like, I'm a confident person now. It's nope. You did it on Monday. You did it on Tuesday. You did it on Wednesday. And then all of a sudden, hopefully you take inventory, you take a step back and say, shit, you know what? Like I'm feeling better physically. I'm feeling better mentally. Why? Again, I'm following through. So I want to make sure that there's moments in when we have this podcast and we talk about having an alpha mentality, like we give some actionable things to people. And again, working out is an easy analogy for you and I to make because it's a big part of our life and it's our businesses, what have you. But I can promise you, if people listen to this and take one thing, it's where can I close the gap between who I say I am, what I say I'm going to do, and what I'm actually doing.
And I think maybe I don't know if bow on top of that, but I think in addition to that too, I want to make it like I wouldn't change anything about my life in Raleigh. I don't want to be here like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was way too much. I wish I didn't do it. Like, dude, I went to fucking war with myself. And I can look back now and I'm like, dude, that was a lot. But that's how I processed what I was going through, right? And there's no right or wrong answer. I don't think, A, now looking back, but also B, when I was there was anything else in the world that would have helped me process, get better, get through, and continue than that, right? So I don't want to say it like it's this bad thing that, oh, you shouldn't go too far. I'm all for, like, dude, like, not metaphorically, like, go to war with yourself. Like, you should be, I think, the hardest person on yourself because when you are, you will also build self-confidence. You will also be better for the people that you care
If
about.
you're not, you're probably delusional, right? If like, I just think if you're not taking inventory and evaluating yourself for where you said you wanted to go versus the work that you're doing and the willingness to get there, like you're probably living in la la land, or you're probably really pissed off with your life. I mean, maybe I'm being dramatic,
But
but
that's the cool thing about it, like, you can control that.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of there's so much I think about most people's lives that they can't control, right? Maybe you have a job you're not in love with, but you have bills and responsibilities. Maybe you whatever. You can't control maybe a lot of it. You can control how you exercise. And I think so much of what I like to talk about is centered around fitness because it was a catalyst for my life that has propelled me into business and relationships and other things well out of fitness. But it started there, again, not just physically, but the physically turned mentally. My brain continues to warp in a positive way, I think. And then that turns in socially, the people that you meet and the people that you get to call friends. And then your life just exponentially gets
Yeah.
better.
yeah, man. I think it's
So why not do that?
It's simple, not easy, right?
Yeah.
As we said. I want to start to wrap up. I think one of the things we didn't ask this to Tim, but if we were to fast forward a year from now, right? We're in December. I love, kind of that end of the year reflection, but we're not going to reflect necessarily. We're going to think about what's going to be possible for us this next year. We sit down a year from now, right? And you're telling me about things that you've gone on to accomplish this year. There's things that you're excited about, whatever. This time next year, like, what are you hoping life looks like in terms of, for Kieran Williams?
I don't want to sound too like foo-foo/granola,
You
but
Do
I
it.
think everything that I try to do is a vehicle, again, to pursue the best version of myself. Garage gym is what I think about every second of every day of every week. So for me, that being the most exciting thing, and then inside of that, the people being the most exciting thing about that, I want to continue to build business that people not just get excited to go to and be a part of, but leave better because they showed up. Right? I feel very grateful that you and I can sit here and we're aligned and we are still growing. But I think everyone is on their respective journey of 100%. Some people have identified it and they're very deliberate in that. Some people have no freaking clue about this 100% or I could growth mindset. And maybe they just found the gym,
Yeah.
right? So but the best thing I think about what I do is the people that I get to surround myself with. So at the end of next year is more amazing people having more super high quality experiences not just with others, but within themselves, to have their, how did I live my life before this moment? Podcast, interaction, have a new perspective on something because they engage with it, because they're a member at the garage, or otherwise, just have it. That's the coolest thing in the world to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think, listen, what's beautiful about where we both are, and it's like, again, it's cheesy to say it, but it's just also a reality. So people got to deal with the cheesiness. It's fine. Is if we can just continue to amplify what it is that we're doing, and it's just a little bit more, a little bit better. Because again, going back to that idea of ambition and wanting to be at 100%, whatever that may look like, we know we're just scratching the surface of building what can be an incredible brand, right? And again, I really, for those listening, like I literally do nothing for this business outside of show up, do some pretty awesome workouts there, video them for the gram, and make sure that I can be there as a soundboard to Kieran as he deals with integrations and things of that nature. Integrations, migrations. I don't even know the word. Clearly I'm not helping. But if we can just keep going, right, and continue to build boxes filled with great people, there's a lot of goodness that comes from it. There are so many people that have gone on to send me notes saying that the Garage Gym has changed their life, that Alpha Fit Club has changed their life, that Ladder has changed their life. And that's a cool business to be in, right? That's a great position to be in. And to me, that's two things. That's an opportunity and a responsibility, right? And the opportunity is we can keep going, and we're just scratching the surface of what this could all be. The responsibility is the fact that we are changing people's lives, and we're changing communities, we're changing families, because that person is not just one person. They're a part of all of those different things. So I'm optimistic that we sit here next year and we talk about a third Garage Gym, and not 20 Alpha Fit Clubs, but 30 going on to 50, and not, 300,000 people on Ladder, but 1 million, and those are real life change through the things that we talked about today. So incredibly grateful that you are here for episode 2. We get to talk about this shit, not just on podcast sets, but every single day.
This is like Monday.
Yeah, this is just us
Tuesday,
hanging out.
Wednesday.
We're going to go to dinner with EB, and we're going to talk about this shit that we're blue in the face. So appreciate you, brother. Episode 2, Kieran Williams, baby. And we dap up, and then Meek Mill comes on, and that's the extent of the pod.
Horrible, dude.